welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About the Deep Stuff. I'm your host, Sean Kneese, and on this show I have off-the-cuff and candid conversations about the big topics in the world. And this is episode 24, the first episode of 2024. I hope all of you are having a good new year, and this has been a new year of new beginnings for all of you. And for those who've been listening to the show, I cover a wide range. I cover current events going on in the world. I cover controversial issues or philosophical topics or spiritual topics, or sometimes diving deep into myself, or it covers a wide range, but it's always the bigger, deep topics in an off-the-cuff and candid manner. And in the first episode of this, I did mention the I Ching, which I said was a Chinese text that where you cast the coins, and based on how you cast the coins, gives you an answer to your question or your concern through a hexagram. And the hexagrams, I believe there's 62 hexagrams, give different analysis of the situation or how you should approach whatever situation. And the interesting thing about the I Ching is hexagram 24 is return. So that's kind of a weird fitting number for my return episode is 24, because I've been on a bit of a hiatus, partially because of technical difficulties. Also just not feeling as much motivation with the podcasts, and I've been going through some transitions in my life, but now I'm really getting back on track with everything, and really just trying to pencil everything in and set short-term goals to lead to long-term goals, and just getting organized with everything I want to do. And I just want to say a few months ago, I think it was maybe late December, I was driving home from my job, and I was on this street. It wasn't super busy. I was on the street. It was a busy street, but it was slow. It was a residential street, and there were so many other cars around me, and it was just kind of a chill, quiet, slow drive. Well, I wouldn't say quiet because there were cars all around me. Well, there wasn't a lot of noise, but I mean, I didn't think at that point I needed to worry about anything really. I mean, I was paying attention, but I wasn't expecting there to be anything out of the ordinary at that point, and I wasn't as on edge. It was, because it was a pretty relaxed street comparison to other streets, or comparison to a highway or whatever you want to, or an empty road with a lot of woods where I gotta watch for a deer to come out. I think I talked about my connection to deer and how you guys can fucking laugh at me for that if you want. That's fine. I don't take myself too seriously. I'm not gonna be like, oh, you're laughing at me because I talk about deer. You can laugh at me and go, ha 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 ha, Sean, he thinks he's connected to deer. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, I'll laugh with you. Ha 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 ha. But this deer came out, and out of all the cars on the road, it chose my car to be in front of, and then it jumped in front of the car. It didn't even jump in front of the car. It was just 1 second it was there, and then my car crashed into the deer. Luckily, I wasn't hurt. And that's a blessing that I didn't, because people get killed hitting deer, and I'm lucky. But my car didn't make it, and the poor deer didn't make it, and obviously I have empathy for the animal as well. But that was a big that was a transition for my life, because now I've been working from home since, and that's kind of given me more time to work on my long-term goals, work on my creative projects, not just my podcast, but my writing as well, and also finding a job more within my field of media and entertainment and everything, and also getting a voice acting agent. I do have multiple passions, but I've organized myself where I'm able to pencil things in. Setting a schedule really has been beneficial for me, and I started doing that more recently. But what I wanted to bring this up was that I think sometimes you have to embrace the unexpected. Like sometimes things happen for a reason, or sometimes like you set an intention and of the path you want to go on, and then sometimes you get on that path to reach your goal in like unexpected ways, or your path changes unexpectedly. Now, obviously, I know people when like hearing something like this, if like something like a tragedy occurs or whatever. Um, but I do think that there is a strength in being adaptable to the changes that come into your life and um, embracing the unexpected. And I recently read this book from Bruce Lee's daughter, which was Be Water, My Friend. And she talked about her father, Bruce Lee's philosophy of kind of flowing with life and being like water, or being adaptable. And now I don't think having a plan of where you want to go is totally wrong. Actually, I think it is good to have a plan and to know what you want in life and to have a vision of what you want your life to look like and to aspire to that. But I'll give an analogy. One of my passions, aside from podcasting, is creative writing, and I write stories. And when I'm writing a story, I know where I'm going to go with it, where the ending is, and I know what the path I want the characters to follow. But sometimes, even though I know where it's going, the surprise and the unexpectedness comes through the how it happens. It never unfolds like in an expected way, but it gets to the destination I wanted it to go to. And that's, I think, kind of what letting go is all about. When they talk about manifestation or going further back, like Neville Goddard talking about using your imagination to create your reality by setting an intention and then letting go. I think that's what the letting go is that you don't get so focused on how you're going to get there. You know what the destination is and where you want to be, but the journey is still full of surprises. And that's honestly why I don't really mind getting spoiled for movies or any other kind of medium, because sometimes the how is more interesting than the outcome, like the how it gets there. Sometimes the journey to that outcome is more interesting than the outcome itself. And then once you get to where you want to be, then where do you go next from there? I think that as long as you're always aspiring to something, your journey continues. Like there's a quote I believe from Sigmund Freud that says something like so one day the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. Also, another example is improv, and that's I've been getting back into it a bit recently, but I used to do a lot more of it, like different teams and everything. And it's always been something that's kind of helped with my podcasting and my other creative passions, and also being a better conversationalist, being more spontaneous. But improv has that that yes and attitude to everything, and I think sometimes you need to yes and life. And I noticed one thing that helped me with this, because with an improv scene, you have to go in and you can't just come in with your own agenda, which is what a lot of people do when they start improv. Is they just come in with, I have this idea, I'm going to make this scene, and but then sometimes when you get on stage, someone else comes out and does something else. It doesn't unfold the way you expect, so you got to adapt. And that's why adaptability is important, and that's in that book from Bruce Lee's daughter, where she wrote about her father, Bruce Lee, the famous martial artist, idea of adaptability and being like water, like how it becomes, water goes in the cup, becomes the cup, and he has that whole quote that's pretty famous. But and he certainly had goals and he had a destination he wanted to get to, but he was adaptable with his way, how he got there. And obviously I'm kind of treading lightly when I'm talking about this, because in a lot of ways, compared to a good amount of the people in the world, I've been pretty fortunate. Um, and I've been pretty lucky, especially with today's economy and everything, that, um, I haven't had to worry too much about my basic needs, or I don't live in any kind of war-torn country, or, um, a lot of other advantages that are easy to sometimes take for granted. But so when I talk about this embracing the unexpected, it's like, what about somebody who had some kind of horrible tragedy happen to them? They're not gonna feel like, oh, it's the unexpected. But I've been thinking about this a lot. Just like the way the universe, if there is a divine intelligence behind everything, because I believe there is. I think it's just not. I don't believe in a humanoid God that's like a conscious being that's like, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. I think um, everybody's truth is valid in a way, and I think there is no real right or wrong. I do think that believe in karma, and like what you give comes back, and I think that the limit should be like, you don't do as you will, just don't harm others or do anything that harms others. But I've just been thinking about this a lot. Like, if there is a flow and like a higher intelligence behind everything, like, why do these terrible things happen? And I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about how a lot of the light in the life and a lot of the positive in life doesn't exist without the negative. Um, Martin Luther King, his goodness came out during the civil rights movement when there was this injustice happening. And it wasn't just Martin Luther King. It was the civil rights movement was a collective effort. There were many people involved. Also, his message has been kind of watered down because he said a lot more than just the "I Have a Dream" speech. He talked about talked against the Vietnam War and a lot of other things. The goodness can't really exist without the bad. The good things can't exist without the bad. And I'm thinking of other things like my mother's side of the family came from Russia, and they like in the early 1900s, her side of the family, because of the Russian Cossacks and pogroms against Jewish people in Russia, and by her parents fled, not her parents, like her grandparents fled here to the U.S. But if that hadn't happened, that was a terrible thing, right? The pogroms and everything. But if that hadn't happened, her family wouldn't be here. She wouldn't have met my dad, and I wouldn't be here. And I wouldn't be, because I'm a good presence in a lot of people's lives, of course, and so is my mother and everybody else who exists because of that. My sister's done a lot of good things too. So like all those good things only happen because of that. And my dad, he I'm not going to go into detail, but like he had a traumatic childhood that motivated him was so traumatic that he left Nebraska and didn't want to go back, and he ended up in New York City because he traveled around, and he would have never met my mother if everything in his childhood was positive, and that's another way I wouldn't have been here. Also, you look at a lot of art and history, like jazz, even like jazz and blues came out of people who were in poverty or going through hard times or facing racial discrimination, or it's sometimes the light comes out of the darkness. Sometimes when times are desperate, or you see the worst of humanity and you see the best of humanity, and that's when when someone's character is really shown. Because it's easy to be a good person when everything's smooth sailing and there's no real crisis or anything. But that's kind of like, it doesn't make those things that happen good. It's just something it's hard to put into words what I mean, but like it's almost like the light and the darkness can't exist without each other. So, on this topic, I'd like to read an excerpt from the Tao Te Ching, which is the official book of Taoism, which is a religion, but I think it could be viewed as a philosophy too, or is like there's no real dogma in it, and I feel like you could appreciate the ideas even if you're an atheist or if you're following some other religion, because it doesn't really contradict anything in any religion. But this excerpt from the Tao Te Ching says, "When people see some things as beautiful, other things become ugly. When people see some things as good, other things become bad. Being and non-being create each other. Difficult and easy support each other. Long and short define each other. High and low depend on each other. Before and after follow each other. Therefore the master acts without doing anything and teaches without saying anything. Things arise and she lets them come. Things disappear and she lets them go. She has but doesn't possess, acts but doesn't expect. When her work is done, she forgets it. That is why it lasts forever." Now, this isn't my usual translation that I have. I couldn't find it. I went on a website to find this passage because I couldn't find my Tao Te Ching book I own. I remember it said it a little better in that book, but I kind of liked how it said it here too. Especially that last line: "When her work is done, she forgets it. That's why it lasts forever." But that, like, I see that was, like I said, like it covers a lot of the points I just made about not only embracing the unexpected, but also how you can't have one without the other. Like I was saying, you can't have light without dark. You can't have short without tall. You can't. So they kind of need each other, and that doesn't justify or make any terrible thing that happens good, but I guess that's a way of just looking at the big picture. It's like how it's tough to say because like, would people appreciate the good if things were always good, and would people, so does the bad help people appreciate the good too? I don't, there's a lot of questions with that, but like I said, it's embracing the unexpected is good, but it's also good to have a plan and sort of an idea of where you're going, because I think for a while I was kind of too much in the other direction of, I'm just gonna drift through life, and it's a biopic and things will unfold. I don't need to have a plan. I'm just a misunderstood genius, so everything's gonna fall into place, and I'm drifting here, drifting there, and it's leading me to this. But after a while, if you're going to just a drifting with everything and there's no plan of where you want to go, that just kind of, then you just be kind of like, it doesn't really go anywhere. So luckily the last few years I've been making more plans with where I want to go with my life and everything, and setting goals and all that. And I'm getting better and better than that. But I don't like to but then I can't also get hung up in trying too hard to control the outcome, or then getting bent out of shape if things don't go my way, because you have to be adaptable too. And so it's a balance. It's not like going off on a road trip to random places, not knowing where you're going and having no destination, and then in that case you get lost. It's okay, you have a destination for where the road trip is going to go, and then along the way you have other adventures, or you see other interesting places you didn't expect to see. So that's kind of what I'm saying here, is that you know where the destination was, but you had to be open to the unexpected turns it takes on the way. Another note on Light and Darkness, I was thinking of Star Wars, how there's the Sith and then there's the Jedi, and in the movies it's very black and white, like the Sith evil, the Jedi good. in the extended universe, at least for the old canon, I think a little bit in the new canon, but the old Legends canon, pre when Disney bought off Star Wars with the new sequels and everything, there was a whole like consistent canon that's been changed a bit since, but there was some of the extended universe material. The idea of the light side and the dark side was a little more gray than just pure good versus evil. Like in Knights of the Old Republic 2, there's a character, Kriya, who she mentions how she views the light side and the dark side as all part of the same whole, and she trains you in the game, and she doesn't judge whether you choose light side or dark side. She just wants you to train you to be the best version, the best force user, and the best version of yourself on the path that you choose. So just the choice is yours, but she wants you to be the best on whatever path you choose.
She's kind of like a Nietzschean character, she's because Nietzsche, he talks about moving beyond good and evil when you become the Ubermensch, because that morality is just something that's created by society, and there's no objective morality that we kind of make. And the Ubermensch makes their own morality, which could be taken in a bad way, of course. I think that we make our own morality as long as we aren't harming others, and that's a very important distinction to make. But I don't think that anything that you do that doesn't hurt or harm others should be considered anybody else's business. But that's kind of, in a way, what the Ubermensch was rising above the traditional path of good or bad and finding your own path that makes sense to you.
And I kind of think there is no right or wrong, not to the extreme of going to the dark side, but I think there is no right and wrong as long as we're not hurting anybody else. Like, everybody's truth is valid for them, and it's easy to be caught up in other people's voices or opinions of what you think you should be doing in this, but really what's right for you is right for you. And I think that we do have the power to shape our destiny and control our destiny. Sometimes unexpected things happen along the way, but now circling back to the concept of adaptability and embracing the unexpected, it's important to note that life is inherently unpredictable. No matter how meticulously we plan, there will always be unforeseen events and changes along the way. What truly matters is how we respond to these challenges. So rather than resisting change or dwelling on setbacks, we can choose to adapt and grow from them. This requires a shift in mindset, of course, seeing obstacles as opportunities for growth and learning. By adopting a flexible mindset, we can navigate life's twists and turns with grace and resilience. In my own journey, I've found that embracing the unexpected has led to some of the most profound growth experiences. Whether it's a sudden career change, a personal loss, or a global crisis, each challenge presents an opportunity to learn more about ourselves and our place in the world. That's why I found the concept of light and darkness relevant, is because you gotta embrace both the light and the darkness, because they all make up your experience, they all make up your path, and they all make up who we are. That a lot of good things only happen because of bad things in the past, and et cetera, et cetera. And of course, in the Tao Te Ching, it's all about getting beyond what we think is good and bad and just what is. So, and it's interesting that I talk about this connection to deer. I know I made a bit of a joke about it earlier, but my friend Luke Yun mentioned that in indigenous cultures, because he's of indigenous descent himself, he mentioned that in a lot of indigenous cultures, deer are seen as good medicine, and that that even when they hunt the deer, there's a sort of respect with them. And I've read specifically in the Lakota culture, deer, there's another word for them, thaka. I'm not sure if I pronounce it as Thaca. Thaka. I mean, it's the guardians on people's journey, so that's why it's interesting. I said before this incident happened that I felt this connection with deer because I feel like there's been times where they were kind of guiding me on my journey, and I've talked about that in other episodes. But and then it's out of nowhere, out of all the cars on that street, the deer chose my car and adjusted my path in an unexpected way, and it's kind of now getting me on the path I need to be on because I was kind of just drifting, taking it day by day. Where do I go? You know, sometimes you got to be broken out of your pattern to get on the path you need to be on. Because sometimes if you're just kind of getting comfortable and stagnant, then you just kind of stay that way. Because nothing's really pushing you to really take charge of your life and get it in the direction you want to get in. I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot, like I'm trying to find the words and I'm using the same words a lot. But it's essential for growth, you know? And so I think planning for the future while embracing the unexpected is a way of working towards your goals and getting your life where you want it to be while still embracing the present and living in the present. Because I think if you get too much focused on the outcome and the destination and you're not enjoying the journey, then you're not living in the present as much. And sometimes I think that keeps you from your goal more because you're not looking at the present and what can I do now. You're not being receptive to the present, and then the actions you take in the present lead you to where you want to be in the future. And that made me think of another hexagram, the I Ching, with this hexagram 2, which is receptive force, which is about just kind of being receptive to things. And I really like that idea of just like setting the intention, and then you take actions as they come along to work towards that outcome you want, but you don't overplan it or try to over control things. And I think sometimes with the Zen masters, they go a little too much. And I'm saying quote unquote Zen masters. I'm just thinking of like these people who talk about the meditation stuff on social media or whatever. They say, you know, oh, don't desire anything in life. You know, there's no point to desire anything. If you do go through your entire bank account and have nothing, so what? If you don't do anything, so what? It's just the present of what is and blah, blah, blah. You know, there is nothing to expect. So what? You know, no, I think you should have goals and desires, but I think, I think that, you know, everybody has to make a living, especially in this economy, that this whole, like, some of that Zen stuff gets on my nerves too. Conversely, a lot of the, if you meditate, you'll get rich stuff annoys me too, because like the kind of the shallow interpretation of spirituality that is all just about achieving more material goods, and that a higher power would be helping you achieve excessive wealth rather than helping some kid that's dying of starvation or going through some other terrible thing. So, because I don't believe that the injustices in the world are because, if there was just one person who pissed me off because they were telling me about, you see, we were born here in the U.S. because of the good karma in the past life, and then the people in poor countries, they had bad karma. It's like, I was like, oh, fuck you, man, you know? That kind of shit. Like, that's the interpretation of karma I don't like either. I do believe that that if you do bad, it comes back to you. But this idea that when people use spirituality as a way to justify injustice, it just pisses me off. But I'm getting sidetracked here. So it's like, do we have a set destiny, or do we control our destinies? You know, it's kind of. I remember in Forrest Gump. I haven't seen that movie in years. I saw a whole bunch of times. It's not like one of my favorite movies. It's just my parents watched it all the time, so it's like kind of in my memory. It actually isn't one of my favorite movies, to be honest. But there's this feather, and it flows through the sky, and it like the wind, and it represents how, you know, Forrest Gump is just kind of in the current of events, and it goes where it goes. And I don't think that that's the extreme I want to live my life. I want to have an idea of where I have goals and I know where I want to be. But I think at one point they ask, is it destiny or are we choosing our destiny? And then one of them, the other character says something along the lines of, it's a little bit of both. Like it's a little bit of destiny, it's a little bit of choosing our own ways. Because after I hit that deer, it kind of got me on the path of like, okay, this came out of nowhere, unexpected, but it got me. This happened for a reason. I feel like now I'm more organized and more pursuing what I want to do more than I was before. It got me on the right path, so I think it happened for a reason. And I wasn't really like I had with this episode. I had an idea where I wanted to go with it, and I had topics I was going to talk about it, but I wasn't sure exactly how it played out, and it didn't quite play out exactly as I expected. But hopefully, you all got something out of it. I don't want to go on too much longer because I feel like anything else I'd say would be kind of filler. But I'm going to be recording episodes every week. I'm going to have guests. I'm going to have other episodes where I'm just kind of giving a monologue like this. Only my other solo episodes and future solo episodes will be a little more organized than this. This was just kind of me giving my thoughts for the beginning of the year. And because I know it's a new year of new beginnings for everybody. And I don't bother with the New Year's resolutions thing. I try to make new resolutions and improvements for myself every day. Because New Year resolution, like you commit to it for like a few weeks and then you don't get back to it at all. But I'm going to get back into this. And actually I mentioned Martin Luther King earlier. The reason why, one of the things that pushed me to going back, because I was hesitant. I was kind of like, I don't really feel like doing this podcast right now. Was that I was walking home from the gym and it was a quote from Martin Luther King, and it said something along the lines of, we always got to constantly ask ourselves, what do we do to serve others? And I was thinking, in a way, this is a service to others, this podcast, because people have told me that these episodes where I'm just kind of speaking my mind and talking about things that I've dealt with and how my own inner struggles and ways I've worked through them, or just my thoughts on different topics, or that I've given a voice to guests that don't often give a voice in the media, making a difference, serving others that way by giving them a voice and having other people hear perspectives that they haven't heard before. And I know there's bigger ways to serve people than making a podcast, but I feel like I'm trying to put content of value out there with this podcast that'll bring value to other people's lives. So that got me back on track as well. And anyway, we'll just keep going with this journey. I have some cool episodes planned for the future, and let's continue this adventure together. If you want to keep updated with future episodes of BSing with Sean K, I'm on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Not on iTunes yet because of that cover art bullshit. I don't think too many people use iTunes anymore. Anyway, but it's on everything else, iHeartMedia, pretty much anything else you can think of. And yeah, we're almost at 36 minutes. 36 is one of my lucky numbers, and now 24 has become a significant number with me too. Like I looked at the clock earlier, it was 24. Now it's 2024. This is episode 24, where I've returned. This is the return to Sean Kneese, and we're almost at 36 minutes. So for good luck, I'm gonna make it 36. But this is about it for this episode. I'll catch you on the next one.